All right, so this week we're going to be talking about maintenance, chapter 14S. Maintaining the production capability is very important in any type of production system at a minimal cost. Maintenance encompasses the activities that relate to keeping facilities and equipment in good working order and making any needed repairs when breakdowns occur so that the system can continue to perform as expected. Maintenance activities are usually organized into two categories: buildings and grounds, and equipment maintenance. Building and grounds, that's responsible for the appearance and functioning of buildings, things like parking lots and lawns and fences. Anything that's outside of the facility is considered buildings and grounds. Equipment maintenance is responsible for maintaining machinery that's used to produce products and any type of equipment to maintain it and keep it in good working condition and making any necessary repairs the equipment may need. Some of the reasons for wanting to keep your equipment and machines in good working condition include things like so you avoid disruptions in production or service. So anytime you have like a disruption in the production of a product or a service, that company could be losing money and wasting time on getting the equipment repaired. Another reason for wanting to keep your equipment and machines in good working condition is to minimize production or service costs. So if you have a defect in a product that you've already sold, just because you had faulty equipment going into it, it's going to cost more money and more time to resolve any type of problems that were caused for having faulty equipment. And then the last reason is to maintain high quality for any type of good that you're producing. So you want to have high quality because if you don't have high quality products, then you're probably going to be spending money on those products after they've been sold. So the less money you have to spend on products after it's been sold, the better for the company. So decision makers in organizations have two basic options when it comes to maintenance. You're either going to be reactive or you're going to be proactive. To be reactive means that maintenance is dealt with when breakdowns or problems occur. So anytime something breaks, they fix it right then and there. To be proactive means that the maintenance is dealt with by scheduling it periodically. So you might have preventative maintenance or preventive maintenance, where you're scheduling every week or every month where maintenance is going to occur just to lower the downtime of any type of equipment. An example of a proactive maintenance would be like vehicle repair. If you drive, you know that every few thousand miles, 3 to 10,000 miles, they recommend that you change your oil. That way, your engine runs, as high to full capacity as possible. Or every, I think, maybe 50 or 75,000 miles, you have to change the transmission fluid to make sure that your transmission doesn't break down on you. You also have, brake pads, every so often, every few thousand miles, they tell you to, at least check your brake pads or to get the brake pads repaired because you need your brakes, when you're trying to stop. And then tires, they do tire rotations every 6,000 miles. So these are some of the type of preventive maintenance or proactive maintenance activities that we all, who the people that drive have to consider Now, a reactive example is for you would be something like your computer. We generally don't have preventive maintenance with computers. We're gonna use, you know, the computer equipment until it breaks, and when it does break, depending on the cost of the break, or how much it costs to fix it, you'll decide whether or not you're gonna, you know, get the fix done. So the goal of proactive maintenance is to minimize any damage to, you know, any parts before, you know, that's caused by wear and tear before it actually becomes a problem. The goal of reactive maintenance is to minimize downtime. So we know it's going to break. We're not going to be proactive about it, but when it breaks, we want to fix the problem as soon as possible. Now, this graph here, total maintenance costs, this figure or diagram or graph or whatever you want to call it, you know, you have your preventative maintenance costs. You see that you have your costs on the side. So the lower the cost is, you know, the amount of preventive maintenance. But over time, you know, that cost rises and the amount of preventive maintenance rises. So over time, you know, that cost goes up for preventative maintenance. And then here you have your reactive or your breakdown and repair costs. You see the cost is pretty high, but there's really no preventive maintenance. It's just pretty much, you know, the cost goes down over time. And then you have your total cost, which is the sum of preventive maintenance costs plus the breakdown and repair costs. That's what the total cost is. And right where preventive maintenance and reactive or breakdown and repair costs, right where they intersect, that's the optimal level. Companies usually want to pick an approach to maintenance that's right here in the middle where it's optimal. All right, so we're going to do an example to show as far as frequency or when you want to, there we go, frequency. When you want to, we're going to do an example, an Excel example, to see like whether you want to do preventive maintenance or you want to do reactive. So you fix it right there on the spot. We're going to use Microsoft Excel for that. All right, so for this example, we're going to try to figure out whether or not we should be proactive versus reactive when it comes to maintenance. And it says the cost of a breakdown is $1,000, and the cost of preventive maintenance, I should say preventive maintenance. Let me change that. Preventive maintenance is $1,250 per month. If preventive maintenance is performed, the probability of a machine breakdown is negligible. Should the manager use preventive maintenance, or would it be cheaper to repair the maintenance machine when it breaks down? So the first thing you want to do is to find out the expected number of breakdowns. And in order to do that, you want to multiply the number of breakdowns times the frequency of occurrence. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the numbers up here. And we're going to multiply for 0. We're going to multiply 0, put that in times 0.20. And then we're going to add so it'd be 1 times 0.3, and then you would add 2 times 0.4 plus 3 times 0.10. So after multiplying all the number of breakdowns times frequency, we come up with 1.4. All right, so after you do that, You multiply the number of expected breakdowns per month, which is 1.4, and you multiply that times how much it costs if the equipment did break down, and that's $1,000, which we got from the question, and that would be equal to, so you multiply those together and you get 1,400. So based off of this, would it be cheaper? We would decide whether or not being proactive versus reactive, which one would we do? And the cheapest option would be proactive or preventive maintenance, because that's $1,250 per month. So just by doing preventive maintenance, the company would save $150. So that's how you come up with, that's how you figure out whether or not, you want to do reactive versus proactive, if you have the correct information or this type of information available to you. So ideally, preventive maintenance will be performed just before breakdown or failure. The different maintenance approaches, you have two different maintenance approaches. You have the predictive maintenance approach, and you have your total productive maintenance approach. Predictive maintenance is an attempt to determine when best to perform preventive maintenance activities. So it's based off of historical records of technical data to predict when a piece of equipment or part is about to fail. The better the predictions of the failure, the more effective the preventive maintenance will be. Total productive maintenance, on the other hand, is an approach where workers perform preventive maintenance on machines they operate. So this approach is consistent with JIT, or just-in-time systems, and lean operations, where employees are given more responsibility for things like quality, productivity, and the functioning of the systems. So if you've heard of Consumer Reports, they keep a track of like different products, and they'll tell you the reliability, any type of specifications, and it'll tell you basically how reliable or the performance of it. It gives the historic data of those products. So if you go to the Consumer Reports website and you're a member, you'll be able to sign in and get all types of information. So we look at things like for vehicles. You go in here, you can select a vehicle. I'm just selecting something. Yep, 2010. And go. It'll give you ratings. Join. So it keeps track of the recalls, ratings, and safety. I'm not a member, so I wouldn't be able to see the ratings. You see they're locked. Road tests. They go on road tests. Reliability. It tells you some of the known issues with the car and some of the things that some of the users have had problems with. So you see major engine problems, minor, cooling. So it gives you a lot of information, and this is some of the type of the historical data that companies may use, but they may not go to Consumer Report, but they would keep track of historical data of equipment in their buildings or in their facilities, to try to get an idea of the type of maintenance that has to be performed and when it needs to be performed. Unlike preventive maintenance, management can't schedule breakdowns, so they deal with them on an irregular basis. So if a breakdown happens, they'll deal with it when it happens. Some of the approaches to dealing with breakdowns include the use of standby or backup equipment. With computer systems, that's usually where they definitely try to use a standby or backup system. So if the primary system goes down, you know, it'll, fill over or switch over to the backup computer system. That way, while the original primary computer system is being worked on, that backup system's up and running. So, the disruption in time is very minimal. Um, Another approach is to keep parts in stock because they may be expecting a failure. Uh, Use operators who are able to perform at least minor repairs on the equipment they operate. So an example of this would be something like the company that I work for. Um, it's a utility company, but we do have a lot of service trucks, and there are actually people employed by the company that's at different sites that work on their auto mechanics, and they fix minor issues with the line trucks. If you need to change the tires out, that auto mechanic will take care of that. Oil changes, the auto mechanic takes care of that. Some of the minor fixes um, that'll assist us in keeping the trucks functioning properly, so we don't have to send it to anywhere to get service. It'll get service on site. They'll have repair people who are trained. Yeah, just said that pretty much. Breakdown programs are most effective when they take into account the degree of importance the equipment or parts are in as it relates to operation. So the more important the part is, they want to make sure that the equipment is functioning and it doesn't break down for too long of a time. So when breakdowns become frequent or costly, managers are faced with a trade-off decision in which costs are important to consider. Managers have to decide what is the cost of the replacement compared to continued maintenance. This question is sometimes difficult to resolve because you know most places might not know, or it's uncertain of when something's going to break down. They can guesstimate when it's going to break down, but you know they may not know exactly when it's going to break down. They just have to be prepared. So some of the things to consider is that you want to look at historical records. That may help to project future breakdowns, but again, managers shouldn't rely just basically on that, just historical things, because you may be wasting money if the equipment doesn't break down. Managers also consider technological changes. Newer equipment may have features that favor replacement over preventative maintenance. One thing I can think of with that is like some of the printers, some of the inkjet printers that they sell in the stores, where the ink costs more than sometimes the printer. So when you run out of ink, instead of just buying more expensive ink, you just scrap the printer and just go get a new printer, because sometimes it's cheaper that way. Um, Another thing, like I said, system disruptions that may occur if the equipment is removed. So if you have to completely remove equipment and you don't have backup equipment, you're going to be disrupting, the functionality or the system as a whole. So while that equipment's being repaired, you're not producing anything if you don't have any backup. And then another thing that managers may consider is forecasting of future demand. For the use of the present or new equipment, the demand for the replacement equipment might differ because of different features that it has. So you just have to managers have to keep that in mind. All right, so that was pretty much it for the maintenance chapter. We'll go in and see what's going to be on the quiz for next week. Okay, so for quiz number 9, you'll have to know all 5 of the key terms for chapter 14S. The questions and review or discussion and review questions that you need to know are number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 10. The type of problem you'll be expected to solve on the quiz would be just like problem number 1 in the problem section.